Okay. Well, hi, good morning, and welcome to our, good grief, 10th lecture already on making it work using XHTML recommendations. This is the HTML5 lecture series at SNHU, and I'm Tom Adamson, visiting professor. What we're going to be discussing in this lecture is what is XHTML and why should I use it if I'm interested in using HTML5. So we could have that question, what is XHTML? What is that? And it could be on a banner that an airplane's pulling. You know, you've seen these banners that, that fly along the sky, and there's an airplane tugging it, so here's my airplane, and here's a guy who's flying the airplane. And let's make it a propeller type airplane. So here's the propeller, and here's a wing here, here's a wing here. And of course, if it's one of those old-fashioned airplanes, it has to have the wheels out here, okay? And then he's flying along, and he's pulling this big banner sign, and there's people generally on the beach, like here's the ocean, and they're up here looking at it, and they're asking the same question. What is XHTML? Which is a good question to ask. Well, let's see what XHTML is. Let's see what it stands for. And some of you might already know. XHTML stands for the Extensible, E-X-T-E-N-S-I-B-L-E, Hypertext, Y-P-E-R-T-E-X-T, Markup, M-A-R-K-U-P, Language, L-A-N-G-U-A-G-E. As you expected, Extensible, Hypertext, Markup, Language, XHTML. And XHTML, we should know, is almost identical to the older recommendation of HTML 4.01. HTML 4.01 is what was the recommendations just before HTML5. So XHTML, that is almost identical to this recommendation, but with some extensions. And we can use the requirements of XHTML on HTML5, and we'll find that we'll get better performance with our web documents. However, what we'll see is that XHTML is better suited for various internet appliances. Now, here's the deal. Here's the deal. You remember on the last lecture we talked about XML, right? And XML in and of itself didn't do anything. But what it did, it held data, and it could transport data, and it could do it all over the cloud, all different kinds of platforms, all different kinds of computers, all different kinds of servers. And people could even update their systems, change their entire computer system, and still XML will work. Well, if we use some XML rules with HTML, we'll have the same advantage with our HTML5 documents if we use the rules to make the web document, if we use the same rules that are used for XML. That's really what we're after. And what we have here is that XHTML has the same versatility as XML. So if we use the rules for XML in our HTML5 document, we will now have the same versatility and power and flexibility that XML gives us. Now, we need to make an important point here. We need to make an important point. Let's see, let's hope this erase is okay. Yeah, it does. Here's the important point we need to make. And of course, we'd have a person saying that, an important point. And of course, the person saying that would have to be pretty serious about making the important point. And that's about what a person making an important point would look like. And he would be holding up his hand like this in order to say, hey dude, I'm talking about an important point here. Okay? And here's the important point. The important point is this. Bad HTML. In other words, bad HTML is HTML that really isn't coded properly, but still looks like it is. Bad HTML code made by people and HTML editors. You're going to say, wait a minute, you mean my HTML editor can make bad HTML code? Yes, absolutely it can, because your HTML editor serves one purpose and one purpose only, to make your job easier. It doesn't say that, hey, this editor is going to make it so that it meets all of the standards of the W3C. It just says we're going to make it so that it makes it easier on you to code a web page, no matter what we do, even if the code's bad. And bear with me. However, this bad code would look okay on most high-powered systems, but may not work as intended on low power, that's computing power, on internet devices. Remember, this was the power of XML. XML, even on low-power devices, as long as these low-power devices could understand the tags and understand text, it was okay. So we're going to do the same thing here, because what's important about HTML is HTML has predefined tags that it understands. So there must be certain rules that we have to follow with it, and we'll see what these rules are. Okay, that's the important point. Bad HTML code made by people in HTML editors would look okay on most high-powered systems, but may not work as intended. Now, if we can go to the screen here for a minute with the camera. If you look at this code here, if you look at this web document, this is bad code. And you may not know why it's bad code, because you look at the results. This is the results. This is the web page. This is the web document. The web page looks fine. Here's my first paragraph. This is my second paragraph. Note that this is in bold and italic, but not anymore. And here's a horizontal row. You might say, well, that looks fine to me. That's true, because the system that this is being displayed on is a high-performance computer. It's got gigabytes of RAM and all other kinds of stuff. So, yeah, it doesn't care that this right here is bad code. It'll show great code. But this bad code doesn't have the advantage now of XML. So what we're going to do now, we're going to go back to the board here. And we're going to talk about what the simple rules are for an HTML5 document in order for it to have the same advantages as an XML document. If we can follow these simple rules, then we can get a lot more potential usage out of our HTML5 documents. Let's look at rule number 1, and then we'll see how we apply this rule to the example that's on the screen. Rule number 1, XHTML elements, or we could say tags, must be properly nested. And what that means is that the last tag opened must be the first tag closed. Okay, XHTML tags elements must be properly nested. This means that the last tag open must be the first tag closed. Let's go and look at the screen here, okay, with the camera. Let's look at this. This says, note that here's a bold, opening bold, and opening italic. So the last tag open was the italic tag. This is bold and italic. However, the first tag closed here is not the italic tag, it's the bold tag. Remember the rule. The rule is the last tag open must be the first tag closed. So the first tag closed here should have been the italic tag rather than the bold tag. But you might say, wait a minute, this is working anyway. Yes, on this system it's working. Okay, I'm going to go and make a correction. You can stay on the screen. Keep the camera on the screen. You don't have to follow me. I'm going to make the correction here so that it is properly nested. And you'll notice that for this computer system, it's not going to make any difference on the output. Okay? However, it is going to make a difference on other internet appliances that really aren't that smart. Now what I've done is I've corrected this. I'm going to do a Control-S to save it. I'm going to come up here and refresh it, look at the page. The page has not changed at all. And that's what can be misleading. Because if I'm doing this on an editor, an HTML editor, and it doesn't make it so that the elements are properly nested, it'll look okay and I'll think, man, I got it made. But now this is corrected. I have a bold and italic. This is bold and italic. The last tag open was italic, so the first tag closed should be italic. And then the next tag that was open after that was bold, and that should be the next tag that's closed. So now these are properly nested, and that's what we want to look for. Okay, let's go back to the board here, please. And let's look at rule number 2. Rule number 2 is that XHTML elements must always be closed. And what this means is for every opening tag there must be a closing tag. And the exception is a void element. And we'll discuss that exception. So XHTML elements must be properly closed. Well, we're going to go back to the screen now. We'll go back to the screen here, please. Let's see if that's the case here. I have a paragraph tag that's an opening tag. and I have another one that's an opening tag. Well, this is not properly closed because what I need is I need to have a closed paragraph tag here before I start the new paragraph. You're going to say, wait a minute, this is working fine. I know, again, it's working fine on this machine. I'm going to make the changes here in order to make it properly closed, to follow Rule 2 and see what the effect is on the output. And you can stay on the screen there. You'll notice there's no effect on the output. And you might say, well, big deal. But it is a big deal because if I can set this up following the rules of an XML document, I'll have more power over my web page. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put a closing tag out here before I start another opening paragraph tag. And here's a paragraph. I'm going to end it right here with a closing paragraph tag. Okay, so I now have them properly nested and I have the tags properly closed. I'm going to save this, Control S, come back here and refresh it. And lo and behold, as you expect, there's no changes on the output. And again, we should know the reason why, because I'm using a very powerful system. But now we're following Rule 2, is that the elements must always be closed. So here I have an HTML, head, body, body. And then I have a paragraph, close, paragraph, close, paragraph, close. Okay, we're going to go back on the board now, please. And let's look at Rule 3. Following these simple rules and making them a habit is really going to increase our usage for our HTML5 documents. Void elements must be properly closed. And what this means is adding a space and then a space and a forward slash inside the tag. What's a void element? Okay, let's go back to the screen now, please. A void element has no ending tag, like, for example, the break or the horizontal row. This is a void element here. And what it does, it gives me this line. So I don't have a closing tag for it. But in order to make it that it's XHTML compliant, I must put a space with a forward slash there. You stay on the screen here, and I'll make the changes over here. All right, so I'm going to make those changes. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come down here, put a space, and then the forward slash. Now, this is XHTML compliant. I'm going to do a Control S to save it, come up here to refresh, and again, you see no changes. I must remember to put a space in here because in some older browsers or some systems, if I put the slash right after that, they may not understand that. Dumb internet systems need to know when something is closed. And this tells the system that, hey, we're closing this right here. This is a void element. It's no big deal. Don't worry about it. Okay, now the last rule. And for the last rule, I need to find what I did with my pen. And my pen is, good grief, what did I do with it? Well, I have another one right here. Okay. The last rule is for XHTML elements, they're tags actually, must be in lowercase. Now, this was not a rule for XML. XML was case sensitive. XHTML is not. But what it's saying is that because there might be some appliances that can't understand the difference between uppercase and lowercase, that all my elements, my tags need to be in lowercase. Okay, let's go back and look at the screen, please. Okay, and we'll see here on the screen, this is in uppercase. It works fine. However, to make it XHTML compliant, I should put that in lowercase. Body is in uppercase. You notice the closing tag's in lowercase. Doesn't care on the system, but this should be in lowercase. What else? Anything else that should be in lowercase? I guess that'll do it. Let me make those changes there. Stay on the screen. And I'll make these changes over here in order to make it so that this part of it is XHTML compliant. I'm going to make that in lowercase, and also I need to make HTML in lowercase. Okay, I'm going to do a Control S to save it. I'm going to refresh it here, and notice there's no difference. Okay, let's come back to the board here. Now, there's other requirements to make this an XHTML requirement document. For example, there's doc type requirements and what have you. There's requirements for attributes. We're not going to worry about that for right now. This is going to be our foundation so that when we start getting into doing coding in HTML5, these are the rules that will follow. And we needed to have this lecture in order to give you that foundation so you understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. Okay, that's it for this lecture. Thank you for attending.